This conference will now be recorded.
Good evening, everyone. I will call this meeting to order of the Board of Adjustment of the Town of Cape Carteret. Today is May the 2nd, 2022. Welcome. I would like to also welcome those who are joining us virtually. And first of all, I would like to ask our board members to introduce themselves to the audience and to those that are virtual. And then with your permission, I will ask those who are virtual to identify themselves as well. Would you like to go ahead?
Sure. Patricia McInerney. Deshaun Barnhill.
And I'm Wanda Fowler. And Madam Clerk, do we have a quorum? All right, thank you. And we see on there, I see ChemWatch Americas LLC. Is that right?
I'm listening in on a meeting.
And then I see, I believe you all are the property owners adjacent to Ms. Etheridge. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. And I can't see y'all. All right. And with that having been said, I'll ask the evidentiary hearing minutes from the last meeting. Do you all get a copy of that prior? Any changes or additions to be made for the clerk? Hearing none, do I have a motion to approve? Thank you. And a second? Thank you. The minutes will be approved. We are here today to hold an evidentiary hearing to consider a variance request to allow encroachment into side yard setbacks, that's a tongue twister, of 306 Easy Street. That would be Miss Pat Etheridge Halt. Are there those in the audience who will be speaking today or anticipate speaking or being called as witnesses? Would you signify by raising your hand, please? And anybody virtual going to speak? All right, what I would like for you all to do is I would like the clerk to go ahead and swear you in, and then we'll be able to move on without any interruptions. Madam Clerk? And for the record, would you be kind enough to identify yourselves? Mr. Jones, thank you. Ms. Etheridge. Thank you. And
Mr. Porter was here as well, and you guys may want to talk to him at the end of the time.
okay.
If you wanted to speak, swear in then, or you want to do it now?
Well, we can go forward if the board members wish to hear from him, we'll interrupt and swear him in then. All right, let's move forward. I would like to begin by asking our staff, our town manager, to present what you have for us today in terms of this evidentiary hearing variance request.
All right. So this is for 306 Easy Street, located in the R10 residential zoning district. The minimum lot size in that district is 15,000 square feet, and the actual lot size is, give or take, 7,318 square feet. The previous hearing date was on April 18th, 2019. And then the previous meeting date was on December 6th, 2021. And that's where the Board of Adjustment determined that the requested variance was substantially different from the previous request from April 18th, 2019. And I've got just a couple of pictures of the property. This is showing the notice for the Board of Adjustment hearing that was posted at the site. This is the GIS aerial view of the property. You can see that the deck wraps around the perimeter of the structure. This is one of the earlier from the previous hearing, one of the ortho images showing the encroachment areas there on the sides of the house as well as in the front of the house. And you can see it there on the sides as well. And then I have some pre-elevation and post-elevation pictures. So this would be pre-elevation. And then that was post-elevation, showing the addition of that deck that wraps around and encroaches in the front yard setback as well as the side yard setbacks.
Mr. Steffi, would you be kind enough to point out the setback lines, please, for us, the property lines?
Yeah, it's probably better I do it. I've got a slide a little later on that'll
Okay.
show that, but
Thank you.
yeah, that we've got a plan that'll show that.
All right.
And this would be looking from the front elevation. You can see pre-elevation here on the left and then post-elevation on the right. This would be looking from the north side, a little bit harder to see with the trees, but this would be post-elevation. So that's the side where the HVAC and mechanical platform is referenced
What
on
we're
that
looking
solid
at right
wall.
now.
This would be the rear elevation. This was pre-elevation of the structure. And then this was post-elevation of the structure. And you can see on this side, that's that staircase that encroaches. And then there's also that deck there that encroaches on the setback. And then this was from street view. This is a pre-elevation image of what the house looked like before it was elevated with the front porch and stairs. This was the original zoning permit site plan. And you can see that the decks were not shown on the front or on the sides where that HVAC is located. There was a wood deck reference that was existing, but on the original site plan, the decks were not shown.
Do we have a copy of that? Is this? Looks different. Of the packet you sent to us?
And then it has a note on there that I'll read. It says the structure must be elevated within its existing footprint. No additions, expansion, or enlargement is permitted. The extent of any nonconformity to any setback shall not be increased. All additions or expansions will require additional permit approval / modification of this permit.
What's the date for that?
That was from March 23rd, 2018. And you can see here, it's also listed in the permit conditions. If you reference condition number 7, which is that the structure must be elevated within its existing footprint. And this was something that the applicant had requested in terms of demonstrating where those encroachments were. So we provided this back in 2019 to the applicant, showing the location of where those encroachments were. This is the chart of dimensional requirements that lists the front yard setback as 35 feet and the side yard setback of 10 feet. And then this is what the applicant provided for the previous meeting back in December that showed a substantially different change in the site plan from what was originally considered by the Board of Adjustment. And I believe the applicant also has this in their presentation, but this was a markup of the site plan showing that the encroachment into the front setback has been remedied on this proposed plan. The encroachment into the side yard setback on the right-hand side of the lot or on the north side of the lot has been decreased and reduced to just that area necessary for the HVAC unit. And then the encroachment on the left-hand side of the lot or the southern side of the lot has been reduced just to what is needed for the stairs and the deck so that there's ingress and egress on that side of the house. So that's a overview of the situation. Be happy to answer any questions. And I can go back to any of those slides if you want to look at those closer. But the issue at hand is whether or not to approve a variance for the encroachment into the side yard setbacks. And the plan, per the staff's review of it, and then also from the decision the Board of Adjustment made back in December, is substantially different from what was considered by the Board of Adjustment previously.
2019. Any questions for Mr. Steffi?
I have a question. When they were required to elevate the structure, previously they just walked in through the front door. With the requirement, and they built on the existing footprint, it looks like they went straight up on the existing footprint. But it would seem as that there would have to be some way to get in and out of the premises, that there should be some accountability as how we got to that point without that being considered.
Yeah, there are stairs on the rear of the structure. And we don't do the health and safety side. That's handled by the county building inspector. So anything in terms of specific parameters for ingress and egress out of the structure would kind of fall in that realm. But if you look at the site plan, there are stairs that are shown there on the rear. Go back to,
Is that also the southern side of the house?
yeah, it would be on the western side
The
of the
current.
house.
current.
Where did those steps go to previously? Were they there existing, or are you saying they were added when the structure was elevated?
Mhm.
They were added.
The
when structure
stairs
was
on the
elevated.
southern side, I believe, were added when it was elevated.
On the canal side?
Yeah, you
No.
can see them.
Those were original there.
Okay.
There. That's on the canal side.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I have a question. I know that the front door is made into a window. That was what I was reading. And that this side stair, the entry door is now on the side, where previously it was not. My main question is, the back stairs do lead into the structure. How far, is it because of the fire department that they need two entrances and exits? Or is it, do we have to have those sets of stairs is what I'm trying to say. Do we know if the fire department states that we have to have them?
Yeah, I'm not sure. We only look at it from the zoning standpoint, but we do have the
Mr.
county
Jones.
inspector here and might be able to weigh in on the life safety implications.
Mr. Jones, can you share some light on that for us?
As far as the fire department is concerned, the fire department wants as many access points as they can get.
Right. But windows also include access points, do they not? Yes.
I want to interject. I believe the fire department is actually one of those call-ins. I asked the question of the fire department. Can't tell you which one, I just think one of them is.
Do we have a member of the fire department on virtual with us this afternoon?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes, ma'am. I'm Scott Williamson. I'm the fire marshal of Western Carteret Fire Department and the fire marshal for your town.
The question was, is there a requirement by the fire department that there be more than one door egress for a structure?
No, ma'am. That's why we have ladders and there are windows.
All right, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
So the secondary question is the back stairs go straight into the structure? What it looks like. Does it go into the structure?
It goes into the back.
And then does the back,
Then you can get,
and then you can get inside. So tell me what the necessity is of these side stairs.
always, it goes to the entrance, the main entrance. And so the back, in the previous, area, that was not an issue whatsoever. So we have stairs in the back. Or it has the option of the stairs in the back. If it's raining or something, I have to drive all the way back. Yeah. Just clear the path.
That's just technology happening.
I'm not sure. That's all I have to say. Did I answer your question, ma'am?
Kind of, the original structure did have a front door, a very front door. So that's why you're saying that the side door was the original entry point. But why did you have a front door then?
That's the way I bought the house, ma'am.
But now you're making that front door a window.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. That,
I need a deck across the front.
right,
I need egress there.
right. I'm just trying to solve the issue of these stairs being in the setback that are on this side. That's all I'm trying to,
Perhaps it would be appropriate for her to present her evidence at this time. It may
Okay.
may clear things up if you're willing and ready to do that.
Good question, by the way. I hope we can address it to your satisfaction.
Okay.
And if the manager can put me up there on the screen so I match up with what you have in your books. Okay. Okay, thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Derek Taylor. I'm an attorney from Morehead City. I represent several municipalities in the county. So Ms. Etheridge asked me to come in and talk to you about this particular variance. Since I'm supposedly have control, there's that. I'm sorry, I'm working out technology. There it is. It's a right click. I'm going to start with a little history. Most of you who are locals know all this, so it will not be of any great surprise to you. I'm going to be talking about the development of Bayshore Park. We have one person in the room that knows an awful lot about Bayshore Park, but it was a development that was originally platted, I believe, in 58 or 59, and then that plat was recorded in 61. And then if you will take a look, I am wrestling with the technologies too. Will it roll? No. There it is. That's going forward. This is there. There. I'll click there. At your stations, you should have a picture of this subdivision map that was recorded in 1961. What you will notice is it was a great big piece of dirt that was split up into 50-foot wide lots. I see a lot of that in a lot of the towns. 50 feet became the Ipsos standard of most developments that I have seen, but rarely did anybody buy a 50-foot lot. They bought two, or they bought part of one to make it bigger, because you can't do a whole lot with 50 feet wide. And that is kind of what this situation is as well. There, which brings us to 306 Easy Street. This home was built in 1969, about 8 years after the actual development was put together. The base of the building itself is 26.6 by 38.6, according to the surveyor that went out there and looked at it. And that's 1,027 square feet. I don't know, I think that your manager came up with a different number. Let's just say small. It's small. And if that's the outside perimeter or the base of the house, what you're talking about on the inside of this little house is about 1,000 square feet of space, of living space. That was fine in 1969. Things have changed a little bit since 69, me including. One of the biggest changes that occurred was in 1974 when zoning came to Bayshore Park. When that was done, all of a sudden, all of these lots were expected to be R10 compatible. That is 15,000 square feet instead of the 7,500 or less that is currently at this particular location. That automatically created a whole lot of non-conforming situations. The lots were non-conforming to the 1,500 square feet. There were no covenants for this subdivision to begin with. So no covenant said before zoning, you got to have 10 feet on either side. So people just built stuff and put it on there. As long as it was inside the property lines, everything was okay. When this came on board, it wasn't okay anymore. So there were encroachments everywhere, particularly with these small 50-foot lots. This property had the same thing. It had an air conditioning unit. It had a well. It had a shed. It had things that were on the property when it was just a small place before it was raised. They already had encroachments into the setback the day that this went into play. So they had a non-conforming lot, encroachments into those areas. But you know, under the law, they have something called grandfathering, and you run into that. So when they put this together, you can keep what you got. It's okay. But it's non-conforming, has that ugly label to it. And if you're going to change something later on, you got to deal with the non-conformity. And that's where we got to the last time you were hearing from us on this particular application. So lot size is 50 by 145. And the encroachments are on the north. I think I might have gone back. Let's see, after rezoning. Now, what else has happened? The world has changed a bit. Some people buy into this, some people don't. If you buy into, well, the flood prevention ordinance that you have here in this town, we'll start with that. It says, let's get the houses up 11 feet above where the floodwaters go. A lot of the houses that are being built now, as you will see in some pictures that we do shortly, almost all of the new ones are required to hit that mark, be up in the air. So you see stilts, you see large top houses with breakaway. Anyway, the idea is to get the living quarters up in the air away from the floodwaters that are coming through. If you're going to put that house up, you also have to put your utilities out. You can't leave those down in the water. So people don't want to walk around in electrically charged floodwaters. It's not a good thing for anybody that's involved in that process. So that's what's happening at Bayshore Park now. All the new places are going up in the air, and you will find that there are a lot of places that are now pushing their old structures up in the air. The idea is for the safety of all the people in the neighborhood, for the safety of the individuals living in these units, and to prevent damage to their own homes and to other homes that are around them. We got a real good look at what some of this stuff just does not seem to be in order. Anyway, there was a slide somewhere in there that just has disappeared for whatever reason that had a picture of Easy Street underwater in Florence. I mean, it was just inundated. It's in your, thank goodness. So you can follow along. That's right. And if this one was before that one, I'm sorry, it's probably coming up later on in the presentation. But the idea is we have got to get these structures up in the air. Your own flood ordinances say that. You know, if you're going to build anything new, or if you're going to rebuild something, you've got to get them up in the air. And that's what this is done with this particular house. And when we have to do that, we have to bring utilities, the power, air conditioning, HVAC systems, et cetera. All the services that supply the house have to go up in the air as well. You will get that information from the building inspector that we're going to have here available to you to ask questions of. But once you put a building in the air, how are you going to get to it? Those questions are intuitively coming to you, and that's an extremely important question. And the answer is you're going to have to build stairways to get up there. Something has to get you up to those higher areas. Over time, this building had a stairway in the back that went into a porch that was added on later before the little house, after the little house was put there. And then this side stairway that we're talking about on the left side of the diagram, I will call that the south side on occasion because that's what it is. That is the stairway that goes into the side of the house, which now becomes the front door because we've taken off everything on the front of the house that used to be the entrance into it. If you have a house with one entrance and one exit, and there's a fire problem, as the fire chief said, you're going to be on ladders or you're going to be on some other methodology of getting out of the house if it's on fire. It is much safer to have more than one ingress or egress. Again, the building inspector can talk about that a little bit. What has changed from the original plan that you had before is it used to be spaced off of the building. Now it is right up against the building so that it's got the least amount of space required in the setbacks. The whole idea of the new plan that is being presented to you is to minimize what we really need to have in the setback areas to minimize any kind of impact on the properties in the neighborhood, and particularly those on either side of the property itself. So utilities, services in the air, ingress, egress, regress, all those fancy terms for getting in and out of the house. Those are the things that we're really talking about. All the rest of it was aesthetics. So that's what the plan looks like now. And this is what our variance request encompasses now. You have that in your packet as well. And what does that represent? It represents 4.9 foot encroachment into the north side setback for a length of about 29, 25 feet, something in that area. I was estimating till I found an old survey that told me it was 25 feet. That is to put all the utilities on. What is not there anymore is the stairway that was going up. At one time, we were talking about having a stairway on that side. That's gone. The other is only less than a foot, okay, wide encroachment for about 17 feet on the south side setback area for stairs access, and that's on the other side that we were just talking about where those stairs are. Really does not encroach very much at all now that it's moved against the house. And then a 1.3 foot wide encroachment from there because that existing walkway that goes all the way around to the back. And we have two entrances that you will see. Let's see if I can go back a minute. If you will see, we really have a main doorway right at the top of the stairs. So it serves as the platform for turning things around in that area. And then go back a little further and you will see the sliding glass doors to the back part of the building there. So there are two entrances and exits across these stairs on that side. Okay, so those are the things we're asking for. That diagram represents what we're asking for. And then we get into what you folks are going to be going through on your form here shortly. That's to talk about should we or shouldn't we do this particular variance. 160D 705 is the new standard, thanks to the legislature deciding they want to put everything in one place. And this is essentially what it says, same thing that's on your form. When unnecessary hardships would result from carrying out the strict letter of the zoning regulation, the Board of Adjustment, nice word, shall vary any of the provisions of the zoning regulation upon the showing of all of the four following criteria that you guys are going to ask questions about and have answers for. Very sensitive. All right, I'm going to posit to you or argue to you that this variance criteria number one, unnecessary hardship, would result from the strict application of the regulation ordinance. There's also a second part to it now, thanks to 160D, which talks about shall not be necessary to demonstrate that in absence of any variance, no reasonable use, sorry, this is the next slide, no reasonable use. So we're not really talking about, yeah, they could leave the house on the ground and flood every time it comes through, it's okay. It's not that. We're talking about trying to make it safe for her to be in the building if something like that happens. So combination of this small lot size with flood protection, that is the situation that we're talking about needing to address. You can't protect a home from flooding on the ground. You can build dikes, you can build ditches, but when that water's coming in, particularly in this area, as you folks know, there's water everywhere. It's coming in the house. Nothing you can do on the ground is going to help it. The only real solution is putting it up in the air, and that's what everybody is doing. That's what your own building code processes and regulations for flooding are doing, and that's what we want to do with this house. Now, here's where we get into the issue of I don't know where you stand on these things. Some people say there is no sea level rise. Other people say, yes, there is sea level rise. I don't care which way you come out on it. All you got to do is look and see what has happened in one storm about 3 years ago. Climate change. Is there climate change? Is there not climate change? Again, I don't really care whether you believe it or not, but it seems like we're having more storms. Thank goodness they're not coming to North Carolina. Most of them are in other places. But we dodge just so many bullets before we start to see those bullets coming at us. And that's going to happen. We're also having these things that I didn't, when I was a kid, I knew about full moon tides, but I never knew anything about king tides. And there are places in Moorhead and probably places here that are going underwater on a normal high tide. Not even when it's full moon, it's just pushed up. Streets are going underwater. So what I'm saying is take all those things that if you don't like any of them, fine. If you like some of them, don't like some of them for the cause of what's going on. The bottom line is the water that was staying out there in Bogue Sound is no longer staying in Bogue Sound for whatever reason. And if you aren't sure, there's that picture. That's what it looked like on Easy Street, at the end of Easy Street. This property would be on the right-hand side past Bayshore. You can't really see it, but it was almost always underwater during that period. Fortunately, it was already raised, but a lot of what was raised on the bottom, it did its job. It was in the air. It did its job for flood prevention. It didn't do the job for being able to keep it from the damage that came from the wind-driven rain and for the wind taking the roofs off. So it was still damaged, but it wasn't flooded. They solved that particular problem. This, I'm afraid to say, is the future. We're going to see more and more of this as we go along. So how do we deal with it? Well, what other people are doing and dealing with it is exactly what we said, and it is, this thing is very sensitive. Yep, went to again. There you go. They're putting them in the air, okay? And that's what this property was doing, was putting it in there to get it out of the water. And here's your variance criteria number 2. So variance criteria number 1 is, what is the hardship? The hardship is it's a small lot, and there's no way to get it up out of the floodwaters without doing something of a variance. All we're talking about is what kind of variance or how much of a variance is required, or you're saying tear the house down. Because you got to figure out a way to be able to get in and out of it and put services to the house out of the floodwaters, bottom line. So what is it about this lot that is peculiar? Well, we've already hit the mark for that, and that is that its size, which is marked in yellow, is smaller than the people all over. We're going to talk about that and show pictures in a minute. There's also something in it, this is what I was talking about, that's been added to category number 2. The variance may be granted when necessary and appropriate to make reasonable accommodation under the Federal Fair Housing Act for a person with a disability. Now, I'm not going to spend much time in what happened in the last meeting, okay? But there was some testimony given that the applicant in this case is diabetic. I'm sorry, I wish I had been over to your houses and knew everybody the way I should know you, but there was a doctor that was involved in the group before. Still here, the doctor gone. I saw on the website that he was now a regular member, but that website may not be up to date. I don't know. Anyway, that doctor was saying, yeah, I agree. You probably have some kind of disability that needs to be addressed. So if you want to throw that into the mix, we do have a diabetic that needs to have power, needs to be safe, up out of the water, food preserved so that she can continue to eat. And I think in Florence, a lot of people were out of power for 2 weeks. It was not fun. So what we're trying to do is to make this not storm proof or storm tolerant, particularly for purposes of flooding. Okay, just to give you what is peculiar about this lot? Well, it's small. Talked about it, it's 50 foot wide. And in case you need to see some sort of comparison about what the different people can do, here's what the house looked like. It's just like you saw from Mr. Steffi. It's just a little place on a little lot next to big places on big lots. So this place is peculiar. Okay, before we put it in the air, it is peculiar right from the get-go. And that lot is peculiar because there are not many 50-foot lots left in that entire subdivision,
Mr.
particularly
Chairman,
undeveloped 50-foot lots.
excuse me,
Yes.
with all due respect, this is post elevation, this picture,
Post, it's pre-elevation.
pre-elevation rather,
That's right.
pre-elevation. So it really doesn't look like that.
It does not
today.
look like that. I'm talking about lot size. I'm really not talking about the structure, except for that's what's going to go in the air. So I'm trying to give you the look at what I'm saying is peculiar. And it's that 50-foot lot. If you only got 50 feet, you can only do so much with that structure before we put it up in the air, which is exactly what we were talking about. But you're correct. I'm not trying to say it's what it looks like now. That's what we started with.
Thank you.
Of course. And please, anytime you got a question, shoot. So let's look at what is the typical Bay Shore lots. If it's peculiar, it has to be different than what's around it. The majority of the lots in the subdivision today are either 75 foot wide or 100 feet wide and about 150 feet deep. So that's where you get your 15,000 square feet if it's 100 wide and 150 deep. Even my rudimentary skills in math tells me that one hits the mark. But this little lot that we're talking about is much smaller than that. And almost every property out there that is near the water, you back away from the water, small house hasn't got to worry too much about the flooding problem and it's fine. But if you're out there on Easy Street, you're having to deal with this flooding process that comes from Bogue Sound and into the neighborhood. And here are a few examples. This house is being raised. Look at how much wider that lot is. As you can see, it's much wider than 50 feet. And that one's going up in the air because it can. There it goes. There's another house that has been lifted. That has been lifted up into the air to get it out of the floodwaters. And again, look at the size of that lot. It's wide. There's plenty of space, no problems for them to do what they need to do. There's another house that has been lifted up into the air and built on, again, 75 to 100 feet wide, plenty of room to get it up out of the floodwaters. Now the new homes that are going up. New homes are being built in the air. They start there. They don't have to worry about a non-conforming lot. They have a lot big enough for their plans. They build it in the air. So this is what most of the new construction is looking like. It's going up to keep it out of the floodwaters. There's another example of one that is going up and out of the floodwaters. And there's just to show you where they start. They start with all these sticks built up underneath it, so that they can be put in the air and out of the floodwaters. This is what most of the owners in Bayshore Park can and are doing with their properties. The closer you get to the water, the more you will see this configuration, and that is these lots are all bigger. There's 90, 50-foot lots with few exceptions. For the peninsulas associated with Easy Street and the peninsula to the left and in between, all of those properties are much larger and have room to get up out of the water with their construction process. So, okay, we're talking about a peculiar lot. Now, this is back to what is actually on the ground now. I'm going to ask you to do something that may be difficult for you to do. What happened in the last hearing was, due to confusion and whatever the purposes, I don't really care how it got there, but the bottom line was they put the house up in the air and they built something around it and said, okay, there it is. And then they later found out, whether they should have been later or should have been earlier, it doesn't matter. They found out that what they had done was not allowed. Okay. So they came to you and said, how about giving me a variance for what I did as if it were allowed? Okay. For you to do so. That didn't go over so well, you folks. That was one of those situations where they created their own problem in your mind. 2 of the 5 said that was the case. Understandable. I'm asking today, if you can, put that aside, because now we have no building permit, we have no zoning permit, we haven't got permission to do anything unless you give this variance. So we're starting from scratch. We know what we have to do to get a plan approved before it goes through the town and through the county to get it built. So we're starting anew. As far as I'm concerned, I think you guys essentially decided it was enough different that you're going to look at it again, and that's why we are here. So the plan is not one that they created themselves. The plan is put together to try to minimize the amount of encroachments that are necessary to actually put this building in the air. The other thing that's happened is Mr. Fordham has gotten his house built. There was a lot of joking about, well, you're going to have a new house, and I think Mr. Fordham will tell you, he's here, that he's happy to have that building where it is. And next door is Mr. Benbow, and I believe he's still on. Yes, he is. Good to see you, Mr. Benbow, who is on the other side. This gives you a bird's eye view of those properties. I think you got that from Mr. Steffi earlier. We're talking about, take a look at the difference to those lots. Mr. Benbow's lot got a nice lot size to be able to do what he needs to do. Mr. Fordham put his house on the property next door, and we're wedged with this property. We really do have just a 50-foot lot and just very little that we can do with it. So just basically told you what this slide says. When you look at 304, 306, and 308, all neighborhoods come right down to who are your neighbors and how close are they? That's what we're really talking about here. Fortunately, Mr. Fordham is here, and you will hear from him as to as much as you want. And Mr. Benbow is going to be here, and he can give you information about how they feel about this particular variance request. So what is the peculiar hardship? It's supposed to do something fancy and roll in. It's not doing it. But anyway, all it is the lot size. You can't really flood-proof the house, bottom line. There it is. Just had to roll it. It's the peculiar lot size that we're dealing with in this case. It is peculiar. It is different. This should be treated differently than the rest of the neighborhood because it is peculiar under your second prong. All right, and this is where I'm going to ask you to, okay, that was then, this is now. This problem was not created by the applicant. The lot size was the lot size when the development was developed, 50 feet. The house was built on the 50-foot lot, already having some encroachments that they had to have for their air conditioner and a well and other things on the north side of the house, because that's what was packed onto this 50-foot house. All that existed before the applicant ever got the house, ever purchased the house. They did not create the small lot size. They did not create the increasing amount of flooding that is happening. They're having to react and deal with and adjust to lot size and flooding. That is the hardship, folks. It's not that they went out and did something wrong and therefore we're asking for forgiveness. This is, please help us get this house out of the water and do the minimal amount of damage to what your ordinance is requiring the setbacks, which didn't come in until 74. So I'm asking for that flexibility, and this is exactly what variances are designed for. Variances are when you've got a hardship, and it's really not going to hurt too many because we're going to get into equity, which is the fourth prong that we're going to be talking about. Then this board has the authority to say, you know what? I can't tell the council that they need to change everything in this neighborhood to be able to do this. It's this one little house, 1,000 square feet, going up to get out of the floodwaters, taking the services with it, and being able to get in and out of it. That's what we're talking about here. So we will be talking about that, and that was not created by the applicant like it was the last time. Now we're talking about, if you allow us to meet the plan that we have given you, it will solve a problem that needs to be solved, and everything that you don't approve is going away. So whatever comes out of this meeting, it will be different than what we started with. And that gets us to the next thing. Oh, I think I now know there it is. The hardship comes from the small lot size and the changing environment that we're working with, not prior construction like it was last time. All right, variance criteria number 4. Is it consistent with the spirit, purpose, and intent of the regulation such that public safety is secured and substantial justice is achieved? That's about as American pie as you can get. It sounds like patriotism written on the wall. Basically, what it comes down to, the Board of Adjustment works in an environment of equities. What's fair? Taking into as many considerations as you possibly can for making that determination. Therefore, let's take a look a little bit at the intent. In the ordinance's intent, like all ordinances in regarding setbacks, at its base is spacing out. Okay, there's lots of reasons to have spacing out, but as the distance between this building and that building, the setbacks keep those apart. So bottom line, when we're talking about the setbacks, we have to look at the situation of the ordinance trying to space it out. What is harmed if we infringe or encroach into those setback areas? There needs to be a reason, such as this flooding process or problem. And it might need to be minimized so that it has the least amount of effect on the spacing between buildings, which is what we were talking about here. Now, I have given you a plan. The plan was put together with an engineer, with the building inspections department. We ain't gonna make that mistake again. It's also gonna go through the manager's office, who is now the planner. I don't know if it'll take 2 people to replace him, maybe, I don't know. But certainly right now he's in that office. So everything is going to go, will now go back through the permitting process. Nothing that has happened before makes any difference. This is starting anew. That's what we're going to do here. I'm going to tender Mr. Chris Jones, who is the building inspector, because one of the questions you should be asking is, okay, is this the minimum really necessary to get the job done? If they're going to put it in the air, is there anything much else that we can do about this plan? And I'll get back to that. There it is. There's the plan. So if I could, I'd like to ask Chris Jones to come up. Normally, there would be this terrible examination, cross-examination process. One of the reasons they call this a quasi-judicial hearing is because it's quasi. Not going to do a whole lot of back and forth. I think let's just speak to that plan, what it does, how it works with the building code, whether he believes that it's minimal necessary to get the job done. I'll let you ask the questions of Mr. Jones Hubbins here. I don't have anything.
All right. So the North Carolina Building Code, as far as egress is concerned to a single family dwelling, it requires a minimum of 3-foot wide access. She has provided access to her egress points by means of stairs on the south side of the house and west side of the home that comply with North Carolina Building Code. Also, if you have mechanicals and utilities, which in this case we have an AC unit and electrical utilities on the north side of the house, and a platform has been provided there. North Carolina Building Code requires working space for those mechanicals and utilities. And by being that the home is elevated, you have to provide a platform for those utilities. You cannot use a ladder. It has to be a platform that you can stand on, place your tools, and have working space to service those utilities and mechanicals. In this case, she has provided a plan with sufficient space to meet the requirements of the code. Y'all have any questions concerning those items.
Board members have any questions of Mr. Jones? I would like to ask a question,
Yes,
if you
ma'am.
all don't. What is to prevent the proposed AC unit from going on that back existing wood deck?
It may be able to go on the back deck, providing the line set doesn't go over the requirements of the AC, the mechanical unit. There's a maximum length in which that line set can be, and you would have to speak with the AC technician to tell you what that is.
Okay.
I'm not sure what it would be required for that specific unit. The
But in ter-
closer the unit is to the air handler, the more efficient the unit operates.
Right.
So a heat and air guy is going to get it as close to that air handler as he possibly can. That's why it's in that position right there.
I'm
Yes,
assuming
ma'am.
that in saying that the air handler is just inside the building at that point.
Typically, it's going to be centrally located in an attic space or a closet.
I've got a question, but it's more along when the structure was on the ground originally. Were the units on that side originally?
I do not know.
If you, oh, okay, okay, well, it goes back to this, so I guess it's for you then.
Is there a
If the units were on the ground, would there be a requirement for a setback for that, for the AC units? Okay, all right, and that's what I thought. You see what I'm saying? Because the AC guys have repairs and all, it's on the ground. So, and it was on the ground originally, in that same location.
That's a zoning question.
That's why I'm asking Zach.
Typically, if it's on a platform of
No,
anything
it was
like,
on the ground.
This AC pad.
What I'm saying is we required them to elevate. So it looks like to me what they did is they elevated the requirement that they had to elevate. But I'm trying to figure out, and it, of course, you can't work on it with a ladder. You gotta have a platform with area to work. What I'm getting at is, would this not be considered a minimal change to that occurred because of them having to elevate?
what's it?
Well, the choice to elevate was theirs.
No, they were required
The
to
home,
elevate.
the home.
You have to,
Yeah, they were required to elevate.
if you elevate the home, you have to elevate.
Right.
Yeah, the choice to elevate the home was theirs
Well, not
after the
necessarily.
flooding, after the
If-
flooding.
If it was flooded and the damage was more than 50%, and they go to, it's non-conforming because it doesn't comply with your flood ordinance, she has to elevate
Right.
to do the repair.
That was my point. The requirement was that it had to be elevated. It was already there. We said they needed to stay within the footprint. It seems like they are staying within the footprint for that purpose. They've got a minimal amount of space that they're taking up to provide
Right.
working, but I'll let you know.
I can answer that. So that's exactly what this board's here to decide, is whether Zach can't, by being the manager, say, yes, because you raised this and now you need a platform, I can just bend the rules, right? So because they raised this and you're hearing that they need a platform, that's what this board would be able to decide, say, yes, this board can vary the rules and allow for this platform to take place because it makes sense. But again, that's the decision for this board and not Zach.
Okay, so back to you. They would have had, this is what they've got to do.
Yes, they have to provide this platform.
I'm not going to believe testimony, but I believe in your package, you will see this particular, and it shows the well and area where it used to be.
Yeah.
Right.
This is actually going to be a little less. where they
That's
were.
what it looked like to me. They're actually shrinking the area of the encroachment. They're not expanding the encroachment. They're shrinking the encroachment.
Bottom line
By
is,
32 feet, 32 square feet.
it's going into the air. It has to. The other thing is they're going to be in an area, you'll notice on the diagram itself, you see where the electric power goes in to the house. So putting the air conditioner close to the electric source putting a generator near the electric source. It all kind of clusters right there in that spot. To answer your question, what the platform is, it's not just the air conditioner, it's the other components as well. And there is something in your booklets, black ones, I believe it is, that you're along with, that has a letter from the electric membership co-op, which is talking about needing access to that power hookup. So just putting it up in the air, he can't get to it. He needs a place to put his electric down to get to the hookup as well.
So then on the north side, they've made the minimum, they've reduced the encroachment and made the minimum requirement that they are required to have a mechanical. Okay.
That is our position.
Can you speak to the left, to the south side of the house? You spoke earlier about the width of the steps for the egress and the width at the top for the turn. Which it made sense to me the way you were explaining.
Yeah, and when you have, at any egress point that you have in the house, you have to have a minimum clearance of 36 inches.
Okay. And in your role as you said that the county
Building inspector.
do you typically see houses that are elevated with only one entry point, or do you typically see
It's,
2 points?
I can't take you to a house that only has one entry.
I've not seen one with only one entry point. So that's why I was just asking what the typical, what other people have to do.
Two is the minimum
Two is-
that I see, that there are many homes with multiple.
And also with going back to the safety issue, once the house is elevated, the gentleman from the fire department spoke about the ladders and windows for the second floor. It would seem like maybe in a safety situation, there's a delayed response time. Or there could be the time to evacuate the house could be delayed by her only having one way in or one way out. That could result in.
That's the correct statement.
I guess.
Any other questions? Go ahead. I'm just looking at what are you doing with the well pump, the house?
It's gone. Already
It's
gone.
not doesn't
No,
operate
don't
now.
use it whatsoever.
Okay.
There's nothing there to make it work anymore. I might add that AC and pump house was 1.1 feet from Mr. Fordham's property line on that side.
Originally.
And now, yes, ma'am, and now it's on top of the platform. So it's closer to my property than it was before we started the project.
So we have a 4-foot stairs on the south side, is that correct? 4 foot wide, is that correct? And going on to a 5-foot deck.
I believe that is correct. I'm happy to have you do the math.
I'm an English major.
Inches on the stairway.
Yeah, the stairway that you will see lands, according to the diagram, right at the entrance to the house, which is now the main entrance to the house, once we get rid of the one that used to be in the front. And the 5 feet gives you some, I'll tell you, there's some good news up there already. So, if you're gonna get in and out of the house with anything, 3 feet is very good for being able to get in and out of the house. Maybe it's the minimum 3 feet for somebody needing a building. I'll be willing to bet most people don't have 3-foot entrances into their elevated homes. It takes a little more. Plus, this is now going to be the primary entrance in 2 locations. Through the back door that you see at the sliding glass doors and the regular entrance on the left. And the encroachment is pretty minor. At that point, where the stairs are.
Mr. Taylor, you were kind enough to provide us with pictures of some of the things that were happening on some of the other lots. Did you get photographs of the other 50-foot lots and what was happening on those lots?
Actually, I think Mr. Bidwell has another You can ask him about it on the other side of this.
There seem to be at least 3 more on that street.
There are, and there are older homes, and I cannot speak for what their future is. I did not interview them. But, okay, I'm gonna ask you to use basically common sense. If the water comes in like that, and trashes that house, if the building inspector has told you, it is more than 50% damage.
They're going to take it up.
Take care of those houses, take them off. And if they take them off, I know if it were me, I'd be putting them in the air.
Well, the reason I wanted to inquire is we read the packet that you sent out to us and it was very eloquently written. But I don't want the board to infer from that that there are no other 50-foot lots on that street, because there are.
There are, and the further you get away from the water, the more there are. 6 lots back away from the water. Probably wouldn't have to deal with this. Far enough back, which I presume is also higher, because looking at what I saw on that easy street.
But these are the ones that I saw on the GIS are towards the water. All 3 of them are, yes.
I'm not saying that this property is unique. I'm saying it's peculiar. If you compare it to the entire subdivision, these other folks are gonna probably have a similar kind of situation. One thing they may not have is if the house is destroyed, they'll build from scratch. Putting an older structure up in the air and trying to preserve what they currently
Thank you. Any questions, any other questions of our presenters? Thank you, Mr. Jones.
have. Chairman, if I can finish up, I'll let you go. Sorry, this is attorney work. We like to talk. Hopefully you like to hear. So substantial justice is where we get to in this. Others in the neighborhood, in this district overall, we're not the only ones, but we certainly are in the vast majority of property owners with only 50 feet wide, where the structure is being put up to try to get it out of the flooding areas. And we're trying to bring it into compliance with the town's flood ordinances. If it's kind of good to have a structure that meets ordinances that are on the books, okay? And that will be part of what will come out of this. Also trying to protect other homes. It's not just protecting this home, but you learned in Florence, and you'll certainly learn in other storms, that when a house comes apart, those parts go all over the neighborhood. You've got porches, you've got debris coming out of those fields. So it helps to protect other people in the neighborhood if this is up and structurally safe. So now, who are the ones that are most affected by any kind of setback encroachment that you guys might grant tonight? Excuse me, guys is probably male. Is this board may or may not grant tonight? The 2 people that you're most interested in hearing from, one of them is, I believe, unless we bored him today, I see him, he's still on there, is Mr. Paul Benbow, and he is the owner of the property at 308. Mr. Benbow, can you cut your microphone on? And please give your testimony that what you would like this board to hear about how you feel regarding this particular application.
Can y'all hear me okay?
We can.
I don't have any problem with it.
I like your minimalist style. What you will notice is the encroachment of their stairway, which is the new part, okay, going up in the air. Mr. Benbow's house is actually already up on stilts. So it isn't like this stairway is going to be right next to somebody's bedroom. The whole area underneath his house, this stairway is going to be kind of going up almost the same elevation next to his open space for parking. So the effect, hopefully Mr. Benbow will agree, on his property for the spacing in this area is different than if we had a house kind of situation, which we were talking about. This is for the separation of buildings. And the encroachments that we're talking about obviously is closer to his home, which is actually built directly on the north side of his property lot. So he's the one that is most affected by this particular situation. Now, Mr. Fordham, when you were speaking to us back in 2019, whenever it was, we were last before you for the variance request, got his house built. So what was a theoretical situation before, the house is there. And did I get this picture in here? Come on, pick up.
think it has timed out on me. Mr. Steffi, do you have any skills to move to the next one? I don't seem to be able to get it to respond. Oh, yeah, you got there. Actually, you can put it on. Okay, good, good. Oh,
That is our next slide in our presentation.
okay, let's go to this one. Because this one shows what I want to show. As you will see, Mr. Fordham's property is now considerably separated on the north side from where this house is. In its current lifted position, that is the way it looks. There was discussion last time about air conditioners making noise. Mr. Fordham said, I ain't gonna hear that. I'm over there. There's the people behind me. There's a problem with what they have. And I will let Mr. Fordham speak for himself as to whatever questions you may have of him about how he feels about the request that we are asking for the raising of this house and the minimal amount of variance that we can use to get it up there. Where did he go? Up there he is. We're up here before you. I don't, well, there's not much there left anymore. Would you like to come up and speak? Okay. Now, you haven't sworn in, and do you want me to swear him in and get the one question answered? Do you have an objection?
Yes, please. Yes, please.
Sorry to make you get up. Can you come in and take the oath, please? Got the same kind of gait that I do.
Yeah.
Do you swear that the evidence you shall give to this board in this action shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you?
I do.
Thank you, Mr. Fordham. Do you have any objections to what Ms. Etheridge Halt is attempting to do with her variance request?
None.
All right, thank you.
I have one for you.
Okay, go ahead, John.
Do you feel as though, do you feel as though the board granting a variance in this situation would help or hurt your situation?
My situation is stable.
Having a house next to you that's unoccupiable versus a house that's occupiable.
Okay, I don't have any problem at all with Pat and Mike being in the house, raised up with the walkway on it. That doesn't bother me a bit. All right.
Any other questions for Mr. Fordham? Thank you, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, we're to the wrap-up point. And thank you for answering or asking a question that I was going to say. When it really comes down to it, substantial justice is being done. The neighbors don't really have any objection to what's going on. The encroachment is into their areas. And what is better? A house with nobody in it. And I've walked that property and you can tell nobody's living there. It needs some help. And only if they've got a house that they can live in are they going to do what a homeowner would do. So giving this variance for the justice of it is not just for my client, but for the entire neighborhood. And I don't know of any harm that we have seen or any questions that have been asked that will come from being able to get this particular variance that we're asking for. So therefore, we respectfully request approval of our variance request. I'm now going to be able to sit down and stop talking so much. Do you have any questions of any of the witnesses? Ms. Etheridge is the fountain of knowledge regarding everything that has gone on out there and will be going on out there. We haven't had her speak much because almost all of the evidence that we're presenting are things that came. And if I had a judge here, I would ask him to take judicial notice of, and those are things that are at the courthouse, surveys, all of these things. I haven't gone through a long authentication process, but the facts are before you. I will say, just to get the record straight, I would ask that the application that we have done in this particular matter probably would anyway go into evidence that this presentation and all the materials associated with it and the books that you have in front of you all be entered into evidence to support our variance request. Unless there's an objection, I would ask that that would be done.
Is there an objection to that? Madam Clerk? Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Certainly.
Thank you.
Ms. Edwards, would you like to have something to say?
I think we pretty well said it. Thank you.
Really, in a nutshell, I need your help to get back in my house after the hurricane. And you can't raise the house and have HVAC that it had before I moved in and stay within the setback. The lot is just too small. If you're trying to raise a structure that was built back in 1969, if you were building a new house, you could move things around. Even the AC hanging on the back, there's no solid wall back there to put an AC. It's all glass. That wall on the north side is the only solid wall to put anything on.
And that clears, thank you for saying that. That clears the question up that I had about the movement of the unit. So that clears that question.
But I think that pretty much describes the problem is I can't stay in the setbacks and raise my house, have egress, and have air conditioner and a generator. So thank you for your consideration. I know it was a long presentation, but sometimes it takes that long to get the understanding. So thank you.
Madam Chairman, may I ask one question first? Fill in a blank that hasn't been asked. Sure. At the prior hearing, it was stated you don't have to have a generator. You can do a portable generator. Will you address that particular issue, please?
Oh, yes. What I wanted to explain previously was that a portable generator, I'm almost 70 years old and my husband works at night. So I can't see myself trying to get a portable generator, something that, you know, can be dangerous when you switch it over from what I understand about them. And then, you know, the exhaust and all that kind of stuff. This generator has a automatic switch panel. There are 3 pieces to it. So it's not just the big piece that you see outside. There are 2 other boxes that hang on the wall or near the electrical supply that are needed for a portable generator. So I need that generator also because I am diabetic. I can't eat out. I can't eat at any place. I have to, the most important thing for a diabetic is their diet. So I have to cook. I have to control my salt. There's only certain foods that I should be eating. So it's pretty important for me. And so hopefully you understand that everything needs to be on that solid wall.
And so you intend to live in the home 24/7?
Oh, yes, ma'am. I surely do. I would love to get back with my neighbors, and I think they would tell you the same. They're ready for us to get back on Easy Street.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
In regards to the Generac, where is the propane tank going to be located? That's something that wasn't addressed.
It is already, there's a propane tank already there. And, you know, one thing you guys don't have is this other booklet.
Another book. That's a good question.
The propane tank goes right here.
This is the,
That's the side on Mr.
this is the platform for the
Yes,
AC.
ma'am. Yes,
Okay,
ma'am.
so it would be under it,
Yes, ma'am.
under the platform for the AC. Okay.
Yes, ma'am. So let me give you this because it has the letters in there from the electric company.
Which
where
we
they
didn't-
say
we
that
did not
platform
have.
is needed. It gives the measurements of
Thank
the
you.
generator.
The clerk will need one. She can have one.
Here we go.
Any more questions?
I think from this book that my question was just answered. So this is a new heat pump as well?
Yes, ma'am.
Everything's
Oh,
new?
my old one was, it's gone. The
It was
flood
pretty
got it.
bad, yeah.
Yes,
I mean,
ma'am.
flood.
And it even in my building permit, it says that HVAC has to go up. The building permit states that all electrical and HVAC has to be raised.
Right. And I understand having to be close to the ductwork.
Yes,
I
ma'am.
had to replace all of mine through Hurricane Florence also.
You're right.
Not too many.
Any other questions of Ms. Etheridge?
The only thing, that I had stated at the very beginning was about the stairwell going up to that other entry door. But, talking more about having 2 entry and exit points, that is very, very important. Unless you're going to jump out the window, I don't
Yes.
think that would be very good.
Yes, ma'am.
So, and it isn't encroaching that much, so I don't have a problem with that now.
Thank you.
I think I speak for the board, it is definitely not our intent to keep you from occupying your home. Okay, so what I think in the interest of these folks here, they will do their due diligence to see if we can not only comply with the ordinances and your variance request at the same time. Having said that, we need now to do our work with these 4 things. Okay,
Thank you, Ms.
Thank you.
Fowler. That
Thank you.
helps a lot.
thank you. Thank you. Thank you for that. Is there anyone else that would like to come before the board tonight? Okay, seeing no hands, then we'll move on. And Mr. DeSalms, if you could remind us our role with regard to this variance worksheet, what we need to do.
So we need a motion to either, I would always suggest a motion to approve even if you're, a motion to approve each one of these, and 4 out of 5 of you have to answer in the affirmative on each one of these factors. So typically someone would make a motion under worksheet number 1, and that is unnecessary hardship will result from the strict application of the ordinance shall not be necessary to demonstrate that in the absence of the variance, no reasonable use can be made. So if there's a motion, then proceed forward on that one.
Do I hear a motion?
I make a motion to approve.
So that would be no.
Yes.
Be a yes. All right. So we have a motion that we will answer yes to number 1 by Ms. Brooks. Do we have a second? Is there any discussion? Seeing none, would you please raise your hand if you are in favor of the motion?
The second, we'll need a motion on the hardship results from conditions that are peculiar to the property, such as location, size, or topography, hardships resulting from personal circumstances, as well as hardships resulting from conditions that are common to the neighborhood or general public, may not be the basis for granting a variance.
And I believe that is key to this. However, the question is there a hardship resulting that prevents her from occupying her home? Do I hear a motion on this particular?
Place a motion for yes.
That a hardship does result?
Well, there is the size of the property makes a hardship.
Okay. Is there a second? Thank you. Any discussion? Seeing none, I'll take a vote. Those in favor of yes for number 2, please signify by raising your hand.
And the third is that the hardship did not result from the actions taken by the applicant or the property owner. The act of purchasing the property with knowledge that circumstances exist that may justify granting of a variance shall not be regarded as self-created hardship.
I make a motion that she did not, her actions did not result in this hardship.
Second.
And that would be a yes. Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please signify by raising your hand. Thank you. And last but not least,
Yes, the requested variance is consistent with the spirit, purpose, and intent of the ordinance, such that public safety is secured and substantial justice is achieved.
do we hear a motion on this one?
I make a motion. It's okay.
Okay.
And I
Second? Ms. Brooks? Any discussion? Hearing none, would you please signify by raising your hand if you agree with this motion? All those opposed? All right. Looks like that we have consensus.
Were you opposed?
No, I was not.
You should-
I was slow. I'm walking and chewing gum at the same time.
Yes, Madam Chair, so the variance request has been approved.
And having said that, we're working on the good intentions of what you all plan to do with the property. Okay, all right. Anything to come before the board for the good of the group?
Well, we just need to make sure the building inspector does know that this is what she's agreed to and this is what you will go according to.
All right. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion to
Thank you. Any objection?
it.
We are adjourned.
Yeah, it's bottom of my heart. I appreciate